Me and a mountain goat. We had a moment. I saw him from a distance chewing on his goat food. As lightning and thunder crackled all around him, he didn't seem to mind at all. I, on the other hand, was quite concerned.
I am very happy to announce that the 2019 Badass of the Year is... Well, this is awkward. Boy, what is that? About 2.5 feet? That camera is very close. Let's see. I want to make sure my posture. Okay, and take one. Blessings, everybody, and welcome to the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge 2019 wrap-up / 2020 kickoff virtual video Pseudo-Cyber party analog. This is a replacement for our annual wrap-up / kickoff party that we have every year at Seven Hills Running Shop in Seattle. And man, I bet a lot of you are unhappy too. I'm obviously super bummed that we don't get to do this. This is really like the night of the year that I look forward to more than anything else. I'm more so than, I don't know, whatever people look forward to, the Grammys or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what people look forward to, but it's what I look forward to, and I'm super bummed that we don't get to do it, but obviously there's very good reason not to do it, not least of which being that it was declared illegal to do things such as that. So now that is, before we get into anything, I'm just going to cover that right off the bat. One of the rules of the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge is that participants must at all times comport themselves in compliance with all applicable local, state, and federal laws. International laws, good to go. We're not concerned about that. So, but all the other laws, you have to comport yourself in accordance with those. So you're not allowed to commit murder during the Wilderness Challenge. You're not allowed to commit extortion or fraud. You're not allowed to transport banned agricultural products over state lines. Like all of the stuff that's illegal is illegal to do during the Wilderness Challenge, of course, and that includes violating Governor Jay Inslee's stay home, stay safe order. So many of the routes are closed currently because the public lands on which the routes are closed. So that is going to be an issue this year. But that is one of the things that's very different about the Wilderness Challenge compared to an organized race. An organized race, all of those things are done for you. If there's trail closures, then the organizers design the route arounds, they mark them, you just follow the flags. And that is exactly not what the Wilderness Challenge is. The Wilderness Challenge is about getting people to reconnect with their fundamental humanity by moving through challenging and beautiful places. And a really key aspect of that is route planning and dealing with circumstances that are beyond your control. So this is something, it doesn't happen in organized racing very often. Every once in a while it does, but it happens a lot in thru hiking and long distance hiking and even shorter backpacking trips and even shorter adventure runs where you can have a plan to go out and do a route and get there, and at the trailhead you can find out that a trail is closed for some reason. Or you can get into your route and find that a trail is closed or that there's been a washout or a rock slide that just happened and nobody even knows about. There's all sorts of things which make it so that you have to change a route or change your plans on the fly or plan around closures. If you're on a thru hike hiking the PCT and there are fire closures ahead, you will usually find out about those ahead of time and you have to plan around those. So dealing with those sort of circumstances is part of the challenge in the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge. And this year, certainly early in the year right now, it's going to be a major challenge and it's going to be something that people have to cope with in which routes they choose and how they plan out their year, maybe hoping to do routes that are closed currently later in the year when they might be open, things of that sort. So it's just part of the challenge. And it may be that a route that you're planning on this year won't even be open this year and you'll have to do it next year. But again, the Wilderness Challenge is a different beast. It's not an organized race. It's not that sort of safe thing where you just show up and you're given a ditto, and as long as you color inside the lines, you get a passing grade. This is real life. This is trying to get people to go out into beautiful and challenging places and discover that real fundamental aspect of being a human being, which is that we are very, very uniquely designed and or adapted to doing this sort of thing. So for people who are coming from a backpacking and or mountaineering, climbing background, that doesn't even need said. I mean, you guys all understand that that's just part of what you're doing. For people that are coming from an organized racing background, specifically running, and then even more specifically, if you're not even coming from trail and you're coming from road running and track running, things of those sort, then that is going to be part of the unique challenge involved in the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge. So hopefully you can learn to embrace that and work with it and enjoy the challenges that that creates for your planning of your routes and of your year and your season, and even maybe you even have a more long-term plan. Maybe you have a 5-year plan to try to conquer all of the Wilderness Challenge routes over the next 5 years, including the new ones. You know, whatever your plan is, this is not that single day time frame of an organized race. This is a big ongoing project that we're all involved in. So that's just part of the challenge this year, as unfortunate as it is. But every year there's routes of the Wilderness Challenge that are closed due to one thing or another. Fire especially closes routes a lot. So people that are experienced with the UPWC, you know that this is just what happens. And often the universe, the planet, Mother Nature, however you want to look at it, but often reality has different plans than what we put in place, and they don't mesh well. But that is essentially the starting point for adventure, in my mind. It's really not an adventure until something goes wrong. So that's, again, part of the culture of the UPWC, and that's part of what makes it unique, and hopefully that's part of what will really help kindle this spark inside you and this love of adventure, where you can actually be doing something that you've put money and planning and time into and be out in the middle of it and see it all going to pieces around you, and actually have that ignite your brain and turn and light up your thought processes, and have you be like, okay, this is when it gets real. I have to think on my feet. I have to figure out what I'm doing. To me, though, that's some of the things that I love about adventuring. Yeah, covering the microphone is not a good move. For me, that's one of the things that I love about adventuring. So I hope that everybody who's given this a shot this year can find a way to sort of enjoy that aspect of the challenge, and we're going to see what we can do this year. So these videos, this series of videos is going to take the place of the really fun party that we normally have at Seven Hills. The plan is to release one of these every Tuesday. Tuesday is the night that everybody voted on to have the video released. So starting with the second video, we're going to be releasing them on Tuesday. This one is going to be released on Wednesday, because the reason I know that is because it's already Wednesday. So I'm definitely not going to have this done and edited and posted and everything on Tuesday. In fact, I feel like it's kind of gutsy to call my shot and even claim I'm going to get it done on Wednesday. I've had a bunch of technical difficulties. I was hoping to start recording about 10 a.m. It's 2:30 or something. So this is already an adventure of sorts, so that's perfect. So that's the plan. This video, the first one, will be posted Wednesday night. Boom, committing, calling my shot. It's going to be up Wednesday night, or Thursday or Friday or whatever. So, but here I am. I'm in party mode. I've got my beverage. So we usually have beverages and food at Seven Hills. This year, I encourage you, hey, if you're watching this and you don't have a snack or a beverage, hit pause, get yourself something so you can just enjoy the vibe, because we are all kind of doing this together. And if you're wondering what I'm having low quality instant coffee. So don't you probably shouldn't watch. It's not all that appealing a thing visually when I drink from a cup. In the Old West, I've seen cups that they had in the Old West which were designed for people with big bushy mustaches that actually have this guard to keep your mustache from getting wet. I wish I had one of those. That would be super cool. But you might be asking yourself, it doesn't bear any relation to anything why I specified that I'm drinking low quality instant coffee, and it's because that's what I drink. It's because that's what I end up drinking out on the trail. And because it just happens, you run out of coffee, coffee on long thru hikes, on long distance hikes, big adventures. Like coffee is kind of one of the main luxuries that I have and enjoy. So I often end up drinking more of it than I plan or more of it than I should and going through it quicker and end up having to just buy whatever I can get a hold of in a resupply town. And so it usually ends up being low quality coffee. So I just started drinking that at home so that I've got an even playing field as far as my coffee standard. But it's nowhere near as good when you're sitting in a comfy chair at home. Low quality instant coffee is freaking delicious when you're having it like in the morning sunshine on a ridge way up high, miles and miles from any other human being. And especially if you don't even have a stove and you're just using body temperature water that you had in a bladder stuffed down your pants overnight or something like that. But that's actually the best coffee in the world, but there's no such thing as a stand where you can get that. And right now it's not even possible because we're all stuck at home. So anyway, I'm wondering if this chair is making anybody want to have a carbonated lemon lime beverage. And if you get that joke, you're probably 45 or older. I did try to make myself presentable. I usually dress up a little bit for the Wilderness Challenge party in that I wear pants. So I've got my good digital camo bandana on, my good digital camo background. I'm hoping that that'll create this illusion where my hair is just sort of floating about 6 inches above my eyebrows. So if that works right, that's the effect I'm going for. If it doesn't, then maybe we'll have to invest in a green screen for next Tuesday so we can make that work. Part of what the Wilderness Challenge is about is failure. Because we put this challenge together originally, Kathy and I brainstormed this like 8 years ago, and it was funny because I mean I very distinctly remember posting it for the first time and really not even expecting anybody to participate. Just thinking like I'm this nut job from up in the mountains that nobody's even heard of. Like to me, there was no reason why anybody would understand what we were going for, or catch the vision or relate to it. There was no reason for it to be resonant with anybody, and I was very pleasantly surprised that anybody even cared, let alone that people signed up and participated and went off and did the Devil's Dome route, which was the very first year, the only route we were offering. And that route is really near and dear to my heart, partly because it's just freaking beautiful. It's a really unique sampling of trail treads and types of ground because you've got everything from the brutal climb up into the high country to the long boring descent down to Ross Lake. This is assuming you're going counterclockwise. The flat, fast, easy mileage along the East Bank Trail. It's just a really unique combination, and it takes you way deep into the wilderness and then into this national recreational area, all within a 45-ish mile loop. It's just a really cool combination. But when Kathy and I first did that, this was back in the days when I was still pretty fat. And some of you might be thinking right now, yeah, Ross, you're on your way back there. People, I don't know, does this t-shirt make me fat? Make me look fat? Probably. Yeah, there's nothing like a Abu Dhabi Combat Club t-shirt. 2009. on a grappler who's gone to seed somewhat. Doesn't look as impressive at that point, but it was much heavier at that time. Although right now I do think that I've probably put on the quarantine 15 that everybody's talking about. In fact, I've probably put on the full-on COVID-19. I think there's a good chance that I'm running about 19 pounds heavy right now. Regardless, when we first attempted the Devil's Dome loop, and the whole reason that that was chosen as the first route for the Wilderness Challenge is because that was formative for Kathy and I. We actually did that before we did our first Wonderland trip, which I've talked about a lot, so I'm not going to recount that whole thing right now. If everybody's like, tell the Wonderland trip story, if everybody says that, you know, then I can include it in the next episode of this if anybody cares. But when we took on the Devil's Dome loop, I was still pretty overweight and out of shape. It was Kathy's idea. It always was. At that time, I was just eating myself to death, basically. I couldn't hike more than a mile or two without being bent over on the side of the trail with debilitating back pain. And she proposed we go do this. So after work one day, we were taking the weekend, and we headed out, the two of us. We left our daughter Angela with her grandparents, and we went off to do this route. And I don't think we really even knew how long it was, or I didn't anyway. Kathy might have had a better understanding. I don't think we understood it was 45 miles. I think we thought it was fewer than that. And we didn't make much progress at all. Like, we got there at dark and only got a few miles in from the trailhead and ended up pitching our tent on this crazy slope, like uphill of a tree where the duff had kind of formed a platform just because it was getting dark. I don't think we even had, I don't know if we had headlamps. I mean, we were very new. I don't know if we could even have claimed to have been new at that point. We really didn't know what we were doing. I had a rented backpack. I think we had rented a tent. I didn't have no idea what I even had on my feet, but using paper maps. And it was an amazing experience, but it was crazy. By the final day, we were a day later than we expected to be, and we had camped maybe 2 miles up. We were going counterclockwise. Our last camp was maybe 2 miles up from the East Bank Trail, and we woke up to rain, and it just rained all day that day, the whole day. And I was very, very cold all day long. Didn't have the right gear, didn't know what I was doing. I remember a couple times we stopped and Kathy made tea that I would slug down just to heat me up, to warm myself up. I remember talking to her about whether or not we should try to flag down a boat on Ross Lake to get hauled out, because I was scared. I was concerned. At the time, I honestly believed that my life was in jeopardy and that I could die of hypothermia. And Kathy wasn't quite so panicky. She kept a little bit cooler head and kept us moving on. And we made it back to the parking lot. And then we still had another 3 miles, 3-ish, 3.5 by trail to get back to our car along the highway. And I'm pretty sure it was my idea to hike the highway instead, thinking that we might possibly be able to flag down a car and get a ride, because I was just sort of panicked. And it was just pouring rain. We were soaking wet. Of course, there were very few cars on the road. None of them were willing to stop for us. And I remember just this crazy, crazy death march where the bottoms of my feet hurt so much. Every single step was horribly, horribly painful. And I don't know how long it took us to hike those last 3 miles. I'm sure it was hours. And it was overall a pretty horrible experience. But afterwards, a couple days later, when the immediate horror of it wore off, and once we got our pictures back, now that was back when you took photos with film and they had to be developed, at least ours were, we kind of realized this amazing experience we had had. And that was really the very beginning of igniting that ember inside us, that desire to get out into beautiful and challenging places. So that was why we decided to do Devil's Dome as the first route. And I wanted to share that story because there's sort of a tradition now of me sharing a personal fail story at the UPWC kickoff/wrap party. So that's one of them for this year. I might do another one if you like it. But I really think those are important. Like, again, that's another thing that makes the Wilderness Challenge so different from an organized race. Sort of the concept between an organized race is trying to make everything perfect so that you can go out and put up that perfect performance and see exactly what you can do under as close to perfect conditions as possible, which is cool. I'm not slagging that off. I'm just saying that it's different. It's not what we're doing here. The UPWC is about those imperfect experiences. It's about making mistakes. It's about feeling bad. It's about taking wrong turns. It's about running out of food. It's about not knowing where your next water source is, because those are the real things that happen, or that you have to plan for to keep from happening in a more real world scenario, out in the wilderness, out in public lands, out in wild places. And our lives are really just a collection of the stories that we live. And as much as I'm a fan of athletic performance, the story of the perfect performance where conditions were great, everything went perfectly, I performed at my ideal capacity and I won, or I set a PR, all that, those in a lot of ways are just kind of not very interesting stories. To me, the other stories are the ones that are fascinating and that are relatable and that are inspiring. I love reading stories about new people going out and having challenges and overcoming them or not overcoming them and bailing out and coming back and trying it again or choosing a different route and succeeding on that. Oh, to me, that is what is so inspiring and so cool and interesting. And the UPWC produces a lot of that. And that's what I love. So when you're on your adventure and everything is just going to pieces, just remind yourself, like, that's what it's all about. That's those moments. Those are those real life moments that are so cool. So hopefully, hopefully many of you have experiences like that. I presume you will. One of the things I do want to share in this first video is the prizes. We've got 2 sponsors this year, in addition to Seven Hills Running Shop, who has supported the event from the beginning. Unfortunately, we don't all get to meet there and have a good time, but for the people with bigger prizes, we're going to leave them at Seven Hills Running Shop for you to pick up in a month or whatever, 2 months, whenever things are open again. But Seven Hills is 100% a sponsor and supporter of the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge, has been from the very beginning. We're always super stoked and thankful for that. And so that's a good place to go to get some of your gear and supplies for your Wilderness Challenge project. So something to keep in mind. Visit Seven Hills. They're super cool people working there all the time. I mean, you can go in there and you can get your shoes fitted by a legend in the local trail scene and not even know it if you're new. So it's always a cool experience. There's often cool people hanging out there. But our big prize sponsors this year are Ultra Running and Gossamer Gear. And Ultra has given us 2 big prizes, 2 $100 gift cards. So that's super cool. We also have a bunch of fandanas for legal purposes. These are called fandanas. That's what they are. You can use whatever word you want. The technical, like, non-branded term is neck gaiter, but the Ultra ones are called fandanas. But these are the printed tubes that everybody wears nowadays that are so useful. You can wear them. Actually, you can wear them to the supermarket nowadays over your mouth and nose as an improvised virus mask. And then the new tech rep out of Portland and the new tech rep was kind enough to hook us up with some of these Lone Peak trucker caps. And my understanding is that these have been discontinued. So these are pretty cool to get a hold of nowadays, because I don't know how you can get a hold of them otherwise. So we've got a variety of colors. Looks like, what, 4 of them? So those are going to be highly sought after. And then some smaller swag items. And I say just the traditional swag, sort of like the acronym for stuff we all get or whatever, but some people like to put a SCH in there, swag. I don't really do that, but I thought I'd name check it. So thank you very much to Ultra Running. That's generous and super cool to support an event like this, which is really out of the mainstream and not the sort of event that many brands even could conceive of before now. So that's cool. Now Gossamer Gear also sent us, man, they were super generous with the amount of prizes. Sweet Gossamer Gear hats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of those. Stickers for everybody. Lots of stickers, so everybody's going to get hooked up on stickers so you can make your car and trekking poles and all that stuff look cool. We've got one, so people are going to be fighting over this, of the ultralight UV protective umbrellas. Kathy and I have used these tons on our thru hikes through the Arizona desert and New Mexico and across the Oregon desert and Idaho. So they're UV protective, and it's amazing. These take a lot of heat off of a day, especially if it's in the 90-degree and up temperature. You open this up and it's like having your own personal piece of shade that you can carry around with you. If you're hiking, you're able to rig it on your pack and still use your trekking poles. And conveniently for the Pacific Northwest, they also function in the rain as a standard umbrella. We also got a grip of these ultralight bamboo spoons, which are great on the trail from Gossamer Gear. Mini beaners for everybody. And then, man, the big prizes everybody's going to be drooling over, a pair of the LT5 carbon fiber trekking poles. And these things are super light and they're quite a bit more durable than other brands that I've tried anyway of carbon fiber trekking poles. They're adjustable 3-piece, so I always used to use a fixed size pole, and I've really come to enjoy and rely on the adjustable ones now. Especially if you're using them on longer projects day after day, it can feel really good on your arms and back to just change the size of your pole slightly, or even adjust them based on the sort of terrain you're on. And then we have 2 Lone Star 30s. These are from the Texas series that Gossamer Gear just put out recently, and these are amazing packs. I used, actually the Ranger 35 was what I used in Lesotho a couple years ago for the Drakensberg Grand Traverse. It's just 5 liters larger, but these packs, they're ultralight packs, but they're also good as heavy haul packs if you're doing a project where you're carrying either a bunch of mountaineering gear or a lot of food or a lot of water, because they have these ultralight aluminum stays in them, which make them carry weight a lot better, but they also carry great with minimal amounts of weight in them. So super cool. We've got, I believe it's upwards of $1,000 worth of prizes this year. And this is because these companies, Ultra Running and Gossamer Gear, get it. They understand the vision of the UPWC and this adventure blogging contest that we created, and this completely new sort of paradigm that we brainstormed in order to find a way to let bipeds of all stripes, whether you're a runner or a hiker, or maybe you know, a backpacker, maybe you don't even consider yourself any of those things because you're so new at it. As long as you're moving under human power on 2 feet, that's what it's about. And these 2 companies actually get that vision and have donated these prizes to you guys to help motivate you and to help reward you for the amazing things that you're doing out in the backcountry. Now for 2019, we had 3 new routes. We had the Purple Rainbow designed by Heather and Ish Anderson, which was about a 100K route involving part of the Pacific Crest Trail in the North Cascades just south of Highway 20. We had Big Jim and the Chwacum, which was designed by Stuke Soul. And then we had the Kettle Crest, which was Kathy Vaughn's route for 2019. So these are the patches. It's kind of ironic. Every year I have trouble, I have struggles getting the patches designed and printed and shipped and everything and having them on hand in time for the event. Numerous years I've failed or partially failed at that. And this year I was completely successful, and I have the patches and had them at the appropriate time. But of course, the party couldn't happen. But you have these to look forward to for any of the routes that you completed. First 100 people to complete a route each get a patch, and so far we haven't closed out any routes yet, which kind of surprises me, but we have not had 100 people complete any of the routes yet. So all of the routes are still open. We still have patches available. So now every year we announce our badass of the year, which is the person who, whether it's doing the most routes or doing the hardest combination of routes or having the most creative approach to combining routes, whatever. There's always somebody who's chosen based on having distinguished themselves as having done something unique, something over and above what everybody else does. And that is the badass of the year. And I am very happy to announce that the 2019 badass of the year is going to be announced next week in the second video. So next Tuesday, 7 p.m. I believe what we're going to do is we will premiere this at 7 p.m. on Facebook and 8 p.m. on YouTube. So whichever platform works for you, that's when you can find out. So next Tuesday, 7 or 8, Facebook, YouTube, we will be premiering the new video, and you'll find out who the badass of the year for 2019 was. Our first ever badass of the year was a gentleman by the name of Jaunty Barrickman, widely known as Jaunty John or the Jaunty One. And he has designed a route for the 2020 UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge. So from his bunker, here is John Barrickman describing the first of the 5 routes that we're announcing for the 2020 UPWC.
Hello, folks. My name is John T. Barrickman. Oh, I was just told to look more at the camera, less at my notes. Hello, folks. My name is John T. Barrickman, and this is the 2020 My Vision is Clear Ultra Pedestrian Wilderness Challenge Cyber Attack. I have a route that I came up with. I've been looking for some sort of route in this area for a couple of years now, and finally was able to piece together a shorter route. I like to keep it in the 25 to 30 mile range. I think that's more accessible to more folks. I don't want to stretch it out too far. You start scaring some people off. You run it out to some of the longer routes in the Wilderness Challenge, and unfortunately not enough people, I don't think, experience those routes. So this one is about 25, 26 miles, about 10,000 feet of elevation gain. It is in the William O. Douglas Wilderness area down by Rainier, east of Rainier, down by Bumpin' Lake. So you go up over Schnucks Pass, down 410, turn off on Bumpin' Lake, park at the trailhead. That's where the that's where the Lollipop route starts, at the trailhead to Mount Aches. And you go, it's a big climb, right out the bat, right off the bat, right off the gun, right off the gun, right off the bat, right out the gun. It's a big climb to start with. and you get up to the ridge, the saddle between Nelson Ridge and Mount Aches. The way I did it was I went counterclockwise. So I went towards Aches first. The scramble to Mount Aches, there is a scramble. When you first come around the corner and you see Mount Aches, my first thought was, well, there's no way you're going to climb that without a rope. But when you do get closer, there are 3-point scramble routes.
3-point scramble routes?
It's a 3-point scramble route. So it should be fairly straightforward. There's lots of different track going up there. It's wide open. 3-point scramble route, pretty straightforward. If you don't feel comfortable with the scramble route, you can circumnavigate around Mount Aches to the south. There is a trail that will take you to a less of a scramble route. It's definitely, it's not a scramble route, but it is a pretty aggressive up. You don't have to do 3 points of contact like you would if you approach from the west. The east approach is much nicer. From there, it's a ridge run. You drop down into the forest. You drop down to your first water source, which is Dog Creek. It's a very good water source, lots of running water. From there, the trail gets kind of difficult to follow. What you have to look for is cut logs. You have to look for old trail sign. It's pretty straightforward though, as long as you're going up the valley, as long as you're going up Dog Creek, you're doing fine. It's fairly open so that you're not bushwhacking, but you are on trail, off trail, on trail, off trail, that sort of thing. It wasn't a super challenge. The trail will break to the north and take you up and in between West Nelson Butte and Nelson Butte. So it's a good climb. It's an exposed climb. It's a lot of, it looks like it's an old burn area. So there's a bunch of down trees, logs to go around, logs to go under, logs to go over. The trail kind of peters out. You're kind of following game trails here. When you finally get up to the saddle and you're headed down the backside, the north side, you're back on trail. Trail's very easy to follow up there. Takes you all the way down the North Fork of the Rattlesnake Creek. You cross the Rattlesnake Creek, another excellent water supply, by the way. And once on the other side, it's a matter of following that trail until you get to the Nelson Ridge Trail. The hookup onto the Nelson Ridge Trail, once you get across the North Fork of Rattlesnake Creek, is going to be a little tricky. So you're going to need to slow down. Hopefully you have a map. Hopefully you have a GPS. Hopefully you have other means to let you know that you're getting close, because it kind of popped up on me and I didn't even realize it was there. So again, at least this section, for a short amount of time, you will be route finding again. Look for the cut logs. They're all bleached white by the sun and by time. It jumps out if you know what you're looking for. It's kind of slow going. It's not a cruising trail. It's kind of slower going on in there. And you're going to eventually just take that Nelson Ridge route all the way back up to the Nelson Ridge, turn head south to finish out the loop, and then the stick of the Lollipop back down to your car. The water supply is great out there. I went in middle of September. If you remember the September, if you remember the September from last year, we had a freak weather storm come through on that Saturday and just brought lots of thunderstorms, rain squalls, lightning, hail, just thunder, squall after squall after squall, coming up from the south, just tracking right up along the edge of the Cascades, the western edge of the Cascades. It was the same weekend they actually shut down TNOA 100 halfway through the race, just because of those crazy squalls going through there. At that same time, unfortunately, I found myself on the ridge, Nelson Ridge, open and exposed. All there is rock and little scrubby ass trees. Me and a mountain goat. We had a moment. I saw him from a distance chewing on his goat food as lightning and thunder crackled all around him. He didn't seem to mind at all. I, on the other hand, was quite concerned. He didn't seem concerned, and I found that comforting in a way. If he wasn't worried about it, he knows more about this environment than I do, I'm not going to worry about it. But that didn't mean I still lingered up there. I shuffled on across that ridge as fast as I could, found the stick to the Lollipop, and got down to the car. It was an excellent time, an excellent trail. Hopefully people will be able to get out and experience it, and I'm really hoping that you do. And thanks for paying attention.
Thank you, oh Jaunty one. Thanks for designing a route this year, John. Thanks to everybody who has designed routes over the years. We are working on getting a new website up. Our website, the hosting and design company went out of business suddenly a bit ago, and I've been slacking / overwhelmed as far as getting a new one up, but that is in the works now. So thank you to the people that are helping on that. And so we will get a new website up, and right now, as always, the Facebook group is the place to keep track of everything that's going on, and it's a great place to connect with other participants. You might find people there that you want to attempt a route with. There's lots of beta there, like everybody shares information there, which is super cool. And to me, that's one of the things that's very, very different about the Wilderness Challenge, is that we have a community. So rather than having everything spelled out and kind of like I don't like this tendency to try to dumb everything down to the least common denominator. And we don't do that. This is a challenge where you, as a human being and a grown-up, or if not a grown-up, then somebody who is at least accompanied by a grown-up and has a grown-up helping you make decisions. This is a challenge for human beings to take responsibility for themselves, to take responsibility for their own well-being and their own travel through these wild and remote places. And I believe that you'll find that that makes it all the more rewarding and that much more meaningful. So that's of course part of our goal with the UPWC. So I really love how, rather than dumbing everything down to make it safe for the least common denominator, we have this community where everybody helps lift one another up to the point where this is achievable. So I do encourage people to make use of the Facebook group. There's a really just amazing group of people there that help one another out and share information. There's always somebody that's out trying to bag firsties, be the first person to do a route either ever, if it's a new route, or for that season, and share information. And that's just is always so inspiring and cool to me to see the way this community works. So if you've never done a UPWC route, then this should be interesting for you. I hope you get to go out and try one, and I, especially if you've never done one, encourage you to plug in to the Facebook group and make connections with some people there and look at all the information that's been amassed over the years and is available on there, and ask questions. We're a friendly group. We don't go for trolling. That sort of business isn't allowed. It's a group where everybody helps uplift one another and we treat one another with respect. That's the goal. So thank you to everybody who's participating, to everybody who's participated in the past. This is really valuable to me. It means a lot to me that everybody participates in this and chooses the routes that are resonant to them and goes out and gives it a shot and then shares your experience. I love reading your trip reports and seeing your videos and photos. And this year I'm going to be, well, both of us, I keep speaking in the first person when I should be speaking in the first person plural. But Kathy and I are going to be on the grid this year. We don't have a big project planned, which is serendipitous since most big projects are shut down right now anyway because of public lands being unavailable. So we're going to be on the grid. We're going to be more involved this year, and we're really looking forward to it. So thank you to everybody. Big thanks and big up to Brad Heftegab, who has really helped with a lot of the heavy lifting on the Wilderness Challenge, especially the last couple of years when Kathy and I were off grid for much of the year doing big thru-hike projects. So big up, Brad. Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who participates. Welcome to all the new people. Looking forward to seeing what you do. So let's just be in the wilderness in our heads and be planning out adventures. And when we get the green light from the authorities, we'll all get out there and get on some of these routes and start doing some amazing things. Next videos next Tuesday. See you then.